welcome to another episode of Peers Over Beers. This is episode 3, It Takes a Village, the importance of learning from your peers. In a continuation of my conversation with Chris Detzel, we discuss the importance of creating your professional community manager network. In this episode, one learns how this may be of assistance through one's community build and adoption journey. We also discuss how creating a mentor platform to assist in strategy evaluation and thought leadership. To start, add both of us to your professional network. You may learn more at peersoverbeers.com. And now, the conversation starts.
Huge opportunity for me over the last year or so, especially from a community management standpoint.
How so?
Well, something I learned, especially more specifically on LinkedIn and Twitter, is that, if you have some knowledge and you've been there, you've done that, you really understand kind of the strategic view of, in my mind, or in my realm of things of community, community managers are very open. It's interesting because they seem, or a lot of them seem to be very social people too. And they will reply, they will answer, they will help in any way they can. And so, I've looked at that for me as it's like, I need to be that same way, right? So, I always kind of play around like with Twitter, for example. I'll put a question out there, I'll tag 5 or 6 people, that I know are community managers that might have pretty good answers. And so, and then they answer and I'm like, oh, this is great. This is very helpful. So what I'm going to do now for the foreseeable future is when I come into a problem and I don't know how to answer it because I know my organization can't answer it. So I'll put it out there on Twitter or I'll put it out there on LinkedIn or whatever and then tag several people to see if they can help. LinkedIn is a little different, actually. Twitter is more for the questions and things like that. I think LinkedIn is more for, hey, I talked to Michael Sandoval today and we talked about A, B, C, and D. We really accomplished these things, and so people will kind of see that as, oh, okay, that's really cool, and then over time what happens is, even today, I got a message from somebody on Twitter. It says, Chris, we need to talk on Slack or we need to talk somewhere, on certain things, because I'm have these problems. Great. Let's get on the phone and talk.
Yeah. To give some context, we just kind of slipped into conversations.
I'm not sure I can hear you, by the way.
Can you hear me?
Nope. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. I'm not hearing you through the headphones.
Oh, that's a problem. So, sorry, we got off on the subject, but we were talking about how important, or this whole, and I agree, this whole idea that community managers, or at least in our profession, we're quite sharing of each other's information. We help each other.
We do.
And so you were saying that you were referencing I think it was a gentleman who was asking you a question on Twitter?
Yeah, it was a woman.
Lady.
It was funny because she asked me, she goes, Chris, she sent me a direct message and, I've seemed to be getting more of those as of late and also on LinkedIn. But, hey, Chris, we need to talk, just about more specific community stuff, what you're doing, what you're thinking about and all that kind of stuff. So
was it the same lady who wanted you to get on Slack? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the same one. She asked me to get this was today actually. And so, it's kind of interesting. So I'm starting to see, or find a thing on Twitter and I've been trying to figure it out on LinkedIn for a while. And I think I've figured that out more so than Twitter, but, it's interesting. It's a lot of fun when people start engaging back.
Yeah. So to give folks context, we were just talking about this earlier. I always say that I know what to do on social, but I'm not the one who is social. However, you are extremely social, and you're out there, and you're, and one of the things I have to give you props for is you have a really good following, and folks listen to you, and you seem to be getting a bit of a social following. Would that be a fair comment?
Yeah, no, I think that's true. What's interesting is I remember back in a couple of years ago, Michael is this really great strategic kind of thinker and all this stuff, and we were doing some more social type of, like, I think it was just some Facebook, but, Twitter was kind of our big thing. We didn't do anything on LinkedIn, but he was like, Chris, you really need to think more strategically. And some of that stuff is, think of kind of the hashtag strategy. What is the hashtag stuff that we're trying to do and all this stuff? And I'm like, this guy's not even on fucking, any of these social things, but he has all these amazing strategic things that I never even thought about, and so I'm always on LinkedIn. I'm always on Facebook. I'm always on Twitter. I'm always, trying to think about, how can I make these successful, and just truly using them. And, for the last year, I took that to heart. And I think that, something that Michael told me, you told me one time was like, look, you need to find a niche. And, if you want to be successful on those kinds of things, from your own brand, you have to find that niche specifically. And I truly believe that for me, I think I found that niche is community management. And so how do you, so what I did was like, that's a good point because, when we worked together, I never really had to reach out to other community managers because you knew all that shit. You're very strategic and I'm very, at some point I was very operational. I can go get the shit done. I email people, I talk to people, I just go, you tell me what to go. We talk about it. You help me to think more strategic and which I wasn't that good at. I'm getting better, by the way. But then I can go execute. You know what I mean? Like I've always felt like the strength was for you was the strategic and me to go, to execute on that roadmap from that strategic roadmap standpoint.
But it seems like even as of recent, you've been able to get that through. So in previous podcasts, we were talking about, your experience around, first of all, is how do you penetrate your personal story about how do you penetrate it in Imperva, or how do you get that through. Secondly, was around what was the purpose of your community.
Yeah, that's right.
So those things don't just come up as a result, right? And this is now getting around, and the reason this is a germane topic, and we were talking about it, was these things didn't come naturally, so you naturally asked a lot of questions. And
Very good
asked, so pardon me, the advantage that we had is that if you had a question,
I just come to you.
Come to me. So when you were now in doing this new opportunity, who did you go to, right?
Yeah,
and it led to a completely new adventure, right?
That's right.
You created something new and different.
I had to, and I feel like I'm pretty resourceful, and so the cool thing about Rexel is there's two people that were highly influential in my growth. And that's a guy by the name of Devashish. He ran all of e-commerce VP or senior VP. I don't remember his title of e-commerce. You obviously know him well. And then, of course, you, and thinking more strategic. So I truly have to give credit to that because, for 3 years, that's all I learned, was, Chris, that's a tactic, not a strategic view. That's a tactic, from you. But then
I've said that many times.
Yeah, many times. So I obviously went into Imperva thinking as best I possibly could as strategic. I knew I had to be more strategic. How do I look at community goals and tie those into the overall customer success strategy, right? And say, if I look at the customer success strategy, what is it? And then how do I tie that into community strategy as well? And so, but I learned that from my years, number one, with the two of you, and I get to work with you every single day, and you gave me all the answers from a community management and all the other shit that we did besides community management. But then it was like, all right, I don't have that anymore. I have absolutely no one that knew anything about community. And
but you went to go get some resources.
So the resources, yeah, absolutely. And so I joined a company called Community Roundtable, which was extremely helpful in some of the data they had.
Yeah, I talked to those find folks all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. So they have some great strategic, or, some great data around, what communities are doing today and things like that. But more importantly for me, it was more of finding other people within the tech field that are community managers and that ran community practices. I didn't care about security. I mean, I kind of do, but it was more of
Software, SaaS stuff.
SaaS software. Who's done what and what have they done and all those things.
It's interesting. We had a previous conversation around, because you said SaaS about, stuff in my head. Like when you start a community, it's almost as if you have to get an idea of what kind of company you're in, right? Because SaaS community or software SaaS community is a different type of community versus, say, a manufacturing community.
Oh yeah,
a company that started with a manufacturer, or a distributor type community is a different type of community, if you will. I almost think I almost had down this idea of bucketing.
Yeah.
Well,
let's be clear. So I completely agree with you. I mean, it's a distributor or, an e-commerce community or, whatever those are, my focus today is specifically on SaaS and on premises. Kind of combining those in the beginning, and then I'll have many communities within that one. But yeah, I agree. I mean, there's a huge difference.
So I know, you had asked a lot of questions on the community roundtable.
Yeah.
But then you started kind of creating your own presence on LinkedIn.
Yep.
Right. And I see it. Your any insights you receive, you push them out there.
Yep.
You tag individuals. Even content or data that you find very interesting, you'll even drop it in there and show folks. You said you were also getting very into Twitter.
Yeah.
Recently. What's your experience on Twitter?
Yeah, it's funny. So I used to work at a company called Forrester Research. I think most people have heard of that company.
Never heard of the company before.
Of course. But I worked there for about 9 years, and I started my Twitter account there. And it's interesting because that's where I got a lot of my following there. But I always posted more things around blogs that are already posted. I don't want to say I didn't have expertise, but I didn't really understand what those expertise was, or were. And so I never really did anything about that. I just posted specific things. I never did anything. And so as of recent, I would say maybe the last 3 or 4 months specifically, I realized that I do have a talent, and I think you've mentioned this is, my talent is not just asking questions, but is just trying to get shit done. So you come up with a strategic vision, and then we look at the roadmap. And once I understand what that is and what that means, I go execute. My I guess talent is execution, in a way. And more from an operational standpoint. It's not to say that I don't understand strategic vision. I do, especially now because of some of the things that you guys taught me. But Twitter, in the last 3 or 4 months, I realized that if you find a niche, like for example, mine is community management, and I'm still playing around. So it's not that I've figured it out. I don't think I've really figured out Twitter.
Yeah, I even argue.
Just don't really understand.
But
I always wonder what's the value of Twitter.
Yeah, you have a good idea about things, right?
Yeah, and so I think that it is, really responding to people that have questions that are in my niche, right? Or even if they're not in your niche, and if you respond to them, they will reply. But it's more of if you have that niche of, in my mind, or in my case, community management, asking questions and getting help from those people. And it's so funny because that's what community is all about, is asking questions, getting help. That's what peers want to do. We all, as peers, want to get help.
Yeah, which is the concept of this question, right? Which was where do you go get help, right? Where did you go, right? And there are some general. There's some general.
Put that in good, all of that.
There are some general places out there, but it's almost about building your network internally or within the community manager network.
Yeah.
And you will find that everyone is willing to share their experience. One of the reasons we're even chit-chatting right?
You know, it's funny is you say that. So, like I said, I worked at Forrester Research for several years. And you know what my job was, Michael? Is connect people of like minds that are doing similar things to each other. That's what I did. So, for example, let's look at a title. So, a VP of Enterprise Architecture was building their practice, their enterprise architecture practice. Well, who else has built that out? Well, I had to know that information. And so I'd say, well, somebody that's doing it really well is Scotiabank's done it very well. Taco Bell is doing a really good job, and this other company's doing a good job. Let's get them all together. And so what I would do is have a call with these guys, and they would talk about building out their enterprise architecture practice. And so those people loved it. You know why they loved it? Because they're learning from their peers. And so it's just the same. We're building a community, an online community that is always there forever for Google to really kind of look, find. And for, anyways, that's probably another conversation. But the point is, people love that shit.
Yep.
I love that shit. Security professionals love it. When we look at our electricians, when we worked at Rexel, people wanted to connect to other people that are doing similar things. And we know that helps them. So that's kind of the value for the customer, right? Is peer-to-peer networking, getting answers quickly, et cetera. But what's the value for the organization? It's that, when you look at brand value, when you look at advocates, when you look at, people start really loving that brand. They look at, let's say, Imperva, they think, God, I'm getting the answers quickly. It's so awesome. They're there for me. They're helping me out. And you know what? That leads to case studies. That leads to advocates. That leads to them telling other people about you and all that other shit. It's so fucking amazing, dude. I mean, it is. It is awesome.
No, it is. I even have some data that we've even talked about. This idea that some of the most, community is one of those activities in which if you get a customer to engage, become the most loyal, most buying customer, right? So if you can get them to do that stuff, if you can get them to get in, that's one barrier. But then to activate, that's a huge win for the company overall, right? So absolutely. I agree, 100%. I'm only preaching to the choir, as I say.
Yeah. Listen. So I don't know where you want to end, but go ahead.
No. I was going to say the purpose of this was. The purpose of this conversation was around building one's network, right? That you're not alone.
Yeah.
Right. You're not alone.
Right.
You are, and I'm sure when we post this, we'll have each other's handles. You can ask me questions. You can ask Chris questions. We've all been through this before. Being in all types of companies, punching through, understanding, how to get into people's hearts and minds. Even just the minutia of things. Part of it is just around finding the right people to be your proverbial advocates to help you through this journey. It's a journey, right? That's right. It's not an easy. I think I've told you once. The hard part that you think is actually the easy part. Creating a community or getting it up is the easy part. The hard part, is actually getting it to live, right? That's actually, this is the next phase, right? Yeah. In the phase that you're in right now, right? Getting it to,
I agree. I don't disagree. Although it's not easy to do that, but it's easier to do that than it is what you just said.
Yeah. You're right. It's about a degree problem, right?
Yeah.
It's hard, but then the harder part is coming, if you will, right?
If I could just explain that to an organization, but Chris, I need data right now. Sorry.
Well, actually, we'll end on this side, but we'll talk about customer strategy, right? So there's another really interesting point that you had brought up in episode 2, which is around how do I put this around the overall customer strategy? And on that's like kind of a lead to the next one. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Michael. This is great.